another edition of Devout Deism. I am your host, David Robertson. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. And a big thanks and shout out to everybody all across the world who has emailed and sent me messages from, literally all over the globe. Australia, Iraq, Israel, Australia, even Africa, and then of course the United States. I want to thank everybody for being involved and for seeking out the information. Even if deism isn't right for you and you find yourself watching these videos, kudos to you for checking it out and for getting outside of your box. I think that's the biggest thing any person can do, is to think outside of the box and expose yourself to a lot of different ideas from a lot of different people. That makes you stronger and wiser and just an overall well-rounded person. So kudos to everybody who is getting involved. And I also want to address this. A big part of where my videos come from are from questions and topics that are submitted from viewers. All right, I am involved in a lot of deist circles, communities, if you will, and a lot of questions come up, a lot of debates, a lot of interactions, and questions arise. And sometimes I think it's a great topic to make a video on, and I'll make the video. So, and today is no exception. Got into a conversation with a gentleman on the Unified Deism Facebook page, and I thought it was a great topic to make a video on, so I want to address that. First and foremost, let's talk about what a mentor is. A mentor is pretty much a teacher, right? So if you could imagine school, you go to school and you're learning about different topics. Ultimately, though, you get to make your own decision about how you interpret that information, how that information is going to apply to you, and how you're going to use that information in the future. And in this realm, in the deist realm, it's no different. Somebody who perhaps feels a certain way is seeking out religious information, doesn't quite fit or mesh with what they've grown up in or what they had been exposed to, what have you. So they're out searching. Maybe they're searching the internet. They go to YouTube. They type in different religions or whatever. They stumble across the word deism. So they're digging into deism. Then maybe they come across these videos. It's a prime example of a very necessary resource for people who are trying to learn about deism. And for a long time, many years, I have been somebody who has helped others find resources necessary to better understand deism. And it's not about converting, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but that's not what a teacher does. For instance, if you learn English or math or philosophy is a great one, because philosophy is something that's based on interpretation of the individual who's practicing it. There have been many forms of philosophy that go different directions. Excuse me. Theology is no different, especially when you're talking about deism, because deism is something that comes from within. You feel certain ways and you know certain things based on the education, based on things that you know to be true and things that you believe are not. And even deism, once again, and I've said this before, is based on interpretation of the information you have, which is why you have different sects of deism. You have modern deism and classical deism and several others. So that's kind of what a mentor does. It simply teaches others how to think for themselves. That's a big part of deism. So I like to help others learn how to think for themselves. And I brought this up in the debate. Growing up, you are taught in most forms of education to be obedient and to just follow the lesson, and that's it. All right? When you start getting into upper levels of education, you begin to, or I should say you're allowed to begin to think outside of the box, start creating your own ideas. And that continues on, and then you start getting into like your masters. And I'm speaking, from a school perspective. Then you get into your masters, you're thinking a lot more for yourself, and then finally you get to your doctorates, and you're thinking primarily on your own, based on foundations that have been laid before you. So then you can start to come up with your own ideas, and whatever. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir when I talk about that, but I'm just trying to clarify. Well, with Deism, it's no different. If you can imagine Deism as a doctorate level, all right, you are, well, I should say most people start off in a conformed idea. This is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be. You say you grew up in a Christian home. And I'm just using that as an example. So you grew up in a Christian home, your parents probably had Christian rules, and they told you how this was, and they told you how that was. And it maybe didn't sync right with you, but then as you got into high school, and maybe even beyond, maybe you were into college or whatever, and you learned more about history, and maybe you started to see some I don't know, contradictions or something that just didn't sit right with you, well, then you began to explore different ideas. Well, it's no different. So at that point, at some point, you're going to try and find somebody who is in fact deist, who can tell you some ins and outs of the deist faith. It'd be like any organization in the world, and I'm not saying that deism is an organization, but any entity or any community or whatever, and you're on the outside looking in, you're probably going to be curious. And one of the things that I've been doing for many years is just showing the door to people. All right, here's what it is. Well, that's really interesting. So how does that work? Well, okay, this is kind of how this works. This is what's necessary for the majority of deists. And that's what that is, all right? Anybody can be a mentor. If you find yourself in a position where you're constantly teaching others about deism, and I'm not saying shove it down their throat, but you're teaching them, you're showing them the door, then you're probably at some form of mentor. Now, a big part of my life has been dedicated to it, and I don't, well, and I might as well. I was an ordained reverend for a long time, and I said that I practiced Christianity for a long time before I got into deism, before I found out what deism was, and I got into deism through my reading of history, primarily the colonial era, talking about Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, things of that nature. But then even I turned to somebody who was in the deist faith and asked them a bunch of questions. And then I realized, wow, that's exactly where I fit. I mean, that, like a glove. So then I got into deism, and I talked to this individual for a long time. And then I started researching more and more and more, and then it got to the point to where he was asking me questions. And then it progressed from there. So here we are today, and I'm doing videos in an effort to help others find the same path. So where does senior mentor come in? Well, that's by definition a mentor who mentors other mentors, for lack of better words. It's the professor, if you will, to the teacher. And I have no problem with that. It's actually a title that was bestowed upon me. And it is what it is. And, in the deist faith, we don't really have reverends. We don't have bishops. We don't have, whatever. We have mentors. We have people who show the door and are there to give information when it's asked for. And to get onto the conversion, there's this idea that a mentor or the purpose of any of this is to try and convert people. Well, first and foremost, I don't think it would be an easy task to try and convert people into deism. I don't. I don't think that would be an easy task at all, mainly because a lot of people who are, devout Christians or devout Muslims or what have you, they're devout for a reason. And, it takes something from within to convert into something like deism. A lot of your own personal philosophy, your own personal thought, but that root started a long time ago, and there's nothing a mentor in the entire deist community could ever do to try and convert somebody. Now, what a mentor can do is say, okay, look, you know, are you thinking for yourself? Or are you using what somebody else has thought? Are you really starting to come up with your own ideas about life and God and all this other stuff, and maybe present questions, but there's nothing to really convert to. It's, here's some information, take it for what it's worth, and then if you find that this is something that you're interested in, maybe we can talk. But that's a way down the road. I mean, there really is no conversion, because you think about it, there's not an organized church. There's not a building you're going to go to sit with a lot of other people. Now, the point of having community and fellowship is obviously, look, if you have an idea and you believe something, it's good to be around others that believe the same thing. This is why a deist community such as Unified Deism is such a great idea. Because then people can come together and expand on those thoughts and ideas. And then this one person, maybe who's over in classical deism, starts listening to some of the words and ideas from a modern deist, and then all of a sudden, wow, wait a second, we're somewhere in the middle, and vice versa. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not about conversion. There's no baptisms. There's no paperwork. There's no club to join. We don't have a limited number of seats. There's not a let's do this and we're all going to go to heaven type of situation. That's not what it's about, and that totally goes against the ideas of deism. However, community, mentoring are directly in line with deism, because deism is about learning, and in most situations where learning is key, it's a good idea to have a teacher and or mentor there to help provide information. And that's really about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot that can be complicated in this. So, and I also want to mention this too. If you are a mentor in the deist faith in any way, shape, or form, I would like to hear from you, because there's a lot that I would say could be done, and a lot of things that you could do in the deist community to get more involved. And once again, if you're not a part of a deist community and you find yourself being a deist, I guess, I encourage you, if you're on Facebook, go to Unified Deism, join there, and talk with a bunch of other deists. Get involved. If you're not on Facebook and maybe you have access to the web, go to Unified Deism. All you have to do is type it in; it'll come right up. But I encourage you to do that. And it's not, and once again, it's not like we're selling anything. There's not a whole lot, that we have to gain personally of it, short of expanding our fellowship, expanding our ideas, expanding our community. And, it's always good to have conversations with people who believe the same thing, who are from the same foundation, and that's fellowship. And fellowship is very important, regardless of what, if you're in any religion, obviously, you want fellowship with people who think and feel the same way you do. And the beauty about deism is that the majority of the people who are deists, and I do say the majority because, not everybody is blessed with this, but the majority of the people who are deists are highly intellectual. They have a varied, way of thinking. So the ideas are different. You can be exposed to a lot of different topics and subjects and methods, I guess, from anything. And it doesn't always have to be a spiritual conversation. If you have an idea about anything, you're free to talk about it. And that's the beauty, I think, of it. And I've met more amazing people who are deists than I think I have in any other realm. And everybody has an opportunity to be a teacher or mentor. And that's another thing that I love about this, and like I said, if you find yourself being a teacher, contact me, or go over to Unified Deism and get involved, and let everybody know that, hey, that you've been teaching and you want to get involved, and we'll find a way to get you involved, because that's what's needed. And why is that needed? That was another question that was brought up, and I want to make this abundantly clear. People who have researched deism to any great length, has discovered that at one point in time in the last 400 years, and I'll leave this as a I don't know, as a breadcrumb for those who like to do research. But deism almost died. And it wasn't because the idea of deism was dead. It was because the information about deism and what it was and its foundations and where it was going had pretty much all been eradicated. And thankfully, some of it had survived, and it began to be expanded upon and researched again. And, you know, what I would want personally is for that to not happen again. I mean, I don't know where I'd be today if it wasn't for deism. I'm a happier person because of it, and I feel more fulfilled in my life because of it. And you know, I can only imagine, you know, generations from now, people will be searching for the exact same information. And I hope that those people who are searching can find people who are willing to show them the way. Not everybody, you know, and everybody has intelligence, you know, on some level, but not everybody knows where to look, and you know, that's kind of where we come into. So that is a deist mentor, and I hope, you know, because I personally know, I would say worldwide probably 12, 13 mentors. But I would love to see that number grow. Honestly, I really would. And but all it takes, and this is all it takes. It's not a complex deal. It's not like you have to be anointed by somebody. It's not like that. What it takes to be a mentor is, one, to be a devout deist, to be well researched on deism and you know, other aspects of natural law and science and things of that nature. Maybe just be intellectual, or maybe just even know the way to the door. And man, I really hope that more of you get involved and take on some of those roles, because it's important. You know, fellowship, community, and teachers. That's really what it boils down to. So I won't beat the dead horse here, but I wanted to make some of those points clear so everybody's on the same page. Once again, I want to thank everybody for watching the videos and for being a part of the program. And I can't stress it enough. If you're on Facebook, search Unified Deism. Come be a part of the community. You know, the numbers grow every day. And of course, check out the website, Unified Deism. And check out a lot of the other, and that's not the end all of deism either. There's a lot of resources and several other communities of deism out there. So I encourage you to be a part of them. Of course, I take pride in Unified Deism because there's a lot of interaction, and we really do have a strong community of great people. So there's that. That pretty much does it for me, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another edition of Devout Deism. We'll see you next time.